The recruitment auditorium hummed with nervous energy as 300 candidates from 72 species settled into their designated stations. Commander Valth pressed 2 of his 4 claws against his temple, already regretting accepting this assignment. 20 cycles of military service, and they'd stuck him with babysitting the annual Galactic Defense Initiative entrance examination. Attention, candidates, he announced, his translator device crackling to life. Today's practical assessment will determine your eligibility for tactical response training. We will simulate a Category 4 Predator scenario. Your objective is simple: survive, assess, and neutralize the threat using approved protocols. A Thornian in the back row chittered anxiously. The Matharian twins clutched each other's appendages. Standard reactions. Valth had witnessed this same scene countless times. Then there was the human. Sitting in Station 47, the creature looked almost bored. She'd introduced herself as Dakota Mills during registration, and her file indicated she hailed from a planet called Earth, which apparently orbited a painfully average yellow star in the unfashionable spiral arm of the galaxy. Her species had only achieved faster-than-light travel 6 stellar cycles ago. Babies, essentially. Dakota raised her hand. Valth's third eyelid twitched. Yes, Candidate Mills? Quick question, Commander. Her voice carried that peculiar inflection humans called sarcasm, though her face remained perfectly neutral. When you say neutralize the threat, are we talking stun, incapacitate, or, the permanent kind of neutralization? Several candidates gasped. Aplixian actually fainted. The simulation provides multiple tactical options. Valth replied carefully. We expect candidates to demonstrate appropriate judgment and restraint. Right, absolutely. Dakota nodded slowly. Follow-up question, sir. Do you want a live? The auditorium fell silent. In 2 decades of administering this examination, nobody had ever asked that question. Nobody had ever needed to. Candidate Mills, perhaps you misunderstand the nature of this assessment, Valth said, fighting to keep his vocal sacs from inflating with irritation. The Predator simulation is designed to test your survival instincts and tactical awareness. Most candidates struggle to avoid being eliminated within the first 60 seconds. So that's a no on the alive thing? I'm saying survival is your primary concern. Got it. No preference. Dealer's choice. She leaned back in her chair, actually smiling. Valth made notation on his datapad. Possible psychological instability. Recommend evaluation. All candidates, assume positions in your designated combat spheres. The simulation will commence in 30 seconds. The holographic environment materialized around each station. Individual scenarios custom-generated based on candidate physiology and suspected capabilities. Valth's monitoring screens lit up with 300 simultaneous feeds. The Thornian immediately climbed a simulated tree. The Matharian twins activated their natural camouflage. A Krevlian candidate began constructing defensive barriers from environmental materials. Standard responses. Predictable. Safe. Then Valth made the mistake of checking Dakota's feed. The human stood in the center of her combat sphere, hands on hips, head tilted slightly as she examined the Predator materializing from the synthetic shadows. The simulation had generated a Ravager, a 6-limbed nightmare with blade-like protrusions and acidic saliva that had driven 4 species to extinction before the Galactic Council managed to contain them on quarantine worlds. Most candidates would be fleeing. Many would be screaming. The particularly unfortunate would already be dissolved. Dakota was grinning. Oh, you're a big boy, aren't you? She said to the holographic monster. What do they feed you? Starships? The Ravager lunged, all 6 limbs extending, mandibles spreading wide enough to swallow her whole. Dakota sidestepped with casual precision, grabbed one of the creature's blade appendages, and used its own momentum to flip it completely over. The Ravager crashed into the ground with a simulated thud that registered on Valth's audio sensors. Okay, assessment time, Dakota announced, apparently to herself. Aggressive, fast, Probably ambush predator in natural habitat. Exoskeleton looks tough, but joints seem vulnerable. Acidic drool means distance fighting would be smarter, but where's the fun in that? She dodged another attack, this time ducking under a horizontal swipe that would have decapitated most species. Her hand shot out, grabbed what appeared to be the creature's equivalent of an ankle, and twisted. Something in the simulation cracked. The Ravager shrieked. Valth's claws trembled as he increased magnification on Dakota's feed. Around him, other proctors had abandoned their assigned monitoring sectors to watch Station 47. "Sir," whispered Proctor Yenix, "is that human toying with it?" She was. By the Founders, she absolutely was. Dakota had somehow gotten behind the Ravager and appeared to be analyzing its spine structure while actively avoiding its attempts to gore her. "Definitely a nerve cluster here," she muttered, pressing her thumb against a section of exoskeleton. The creature spasmed. "And here. Interesting. Your people really should have better anatomical databases, Commander. This thing's got at least 3 major weaknesses I can see, and I only took basic xenobiology." The Ravager managed to spin, catching Dakota with its tail and sending her rolling across the synthetic ground. Valth felt something like hope. Perhaps the simulation would correct this aberration. Dakota stood up, brushed dust off her uniform, and smiled wider. "Okay," she said, cracking her knuckles in a gesture Valth found deeply unsettling. "My turn." What happened next would later be described in official reports as highly irregular candidate behavior requiring extensive review and potential protocol revision. What actually happened was that Dakota Mills proceeded to systematically dismantle a Category 4 predator simulation using nothing but her bare hands, questionable decisions, and what could only be described as enthusiastic violence. She was laughing the entire time. Commander Valth watched his career disintegrate in real time. Station 47 had become the center of attention for every proctor, administrator, and unfortunate maintenance worker who happened to be in the auditorium. 300 holographic combat scenarios played out across the massive space, but nobody cared about any of them except the one where a human was apparently wrestling a Ravager into submission. "Should we, stop this?" Proctor Yenix ventured, all 6 of his eyes fixed on the display. "On what grounds?" Valth's voice came out strangled. "She hasn't violated any protocols. Technically, she just ripped off one of its limbs. The simulation registered it as tactically sound. She's using the limb as a club, still within parameters." Dakota's voice echoed through the audio feed, breathless but cheerful. "You know what? I think we're bonding. Is that weird? It feels weird. Stop trying to eat my face, and maybe we can talk about this." The Ravager, to its credit, was attempting every killing technique in its programming. None of them were working. Every lunge met empty air. Every swipe found Dakota somewhere else, usually somewhere that allowed her to inflict maximum damage to the creature's increasingly compromised structural integrity. In the background feeds, other candidates were having more traditional experiences. The Thornian had successfully hidden for the required duration and passed. The Metherian twins worked together to confuse their predator into attacking its own reflection. A Gralvian candidate used their natural electrical discharge to stun their opponent. All acceptable, all normal, all boring compared to whatever was happening at Station 47. Dakota had somehow climbed onto the Ravager's back and appeared to be steering it like a mount. "Left. No, your other left. Do you even have a left? How does your spatial awareness work with that many eyes?" "This is insane," breathed Proctor Tinnick, a usually stoic Valerian who'd been administering exams for 40 cycles. "She's teaching it commands." "She's not teaching it anything," Valth insisted, though his conviction was crumbling. It's simply the human is merely demonstrating, alternative tactical approaches." The Ravager bucked violently, finally dislodging Dakota. She hit the ground, rolled smoothly to her feet, and wiped something green off her sleeve. Simulation blood. The creature was wounded, limping, and according to the biometric readings, experiencing what the computer labeled as confusion and possible trauma response. "All right, buddy," Dakota said, raising both hands in a placating gesture. I think we've established the pecking order here. You're a magnificent apex predator, truly terrifying, would definitely eat me in the wild. But this isn't the wild, and I've got at least 3 more ways to take you apart before we even get creative. So here's the deal. You stop trying to murder me, I stop breaking your various appendages, and we call this a mutual understanding. Sound good? The Ravager stared at her with all 8 eyes. Then it sat down. Every alarm in the simulation matrix started screaming at once. What just happened? Yenix demanded. Valth checked the readouts, certain there'd been a malfunction. There hadn't been. The Predator AI just reclassified the human as a greater threat than its own survival imperatives. That's not possible. These simulations have been refined over centuries. Predators don't just give up. Apparently they do when faced with whatever that is. Valth gestured helplessly at Dakota, who was now sitting cross-legged in front of the Ravager, apparently explaining something to it in a patient tone. You see, on my planet we've got these things called bears, she was saying, and crocodiles, and sharks, and Australians. Point is, we evolved alongside things that wanted to eat us, so we got pretty good at the whole survival thing. Your species probably evolved on some nice planet where you were the biggest thing around, right? Nobody challenging you? Must have been great. Anyway, that's why this seems unfair. The simulation timer hit the 15-minute mark. Dakota had not only survived, she'd essentially conducted a therapy session with her opponent. Around the auditorium, other candidates finished their scenarios. 70% pass rate, which was standard. Nobody noticed. All eyes remained on station 47. Finally, blessedly, Dakota stood up. She looked directly at the nearest camera, and Valth could swear she was looking straight at him. So, Commander, we done here? Because I think my new friend and I have reached an understanding. He's agreed to stop the whole murder thing. I've agreed not to break any more of his parts, and I'm pretty sure we're both ready for this exam to be over. Valth realized every proctor was looking at him, waiting for guidance. 20 years of service. Thousands of examinations. Not a single regulation covered this situation. He pressed the communication button. Candidate Mills, state your assessment of the threat level. Oh, it's definitely a Category 4 predator. Highly dangerous, lethal capabilities, would absolutely wreck most standard military personnel in a fair fight. Strong recommend for containment protocols and serious respect for its combat abilities. And the neutralization status? Dakota glanced at the Ravager, which was now grooming itself like some bizarre holographic cat. Define neutralize, sir. It's not attacking anyone. It's not going anywhere. And it's definitely not winning any fights in its current condition. If that counts, then yeah, threat neutralized. Proctor Tinnick leaned close to Valth. Sir, she basically domesticated a Ravager in under 16 minutes. I'm aware, Tinnick. Protocol says we need to mark her evaluation. I'm extremely aware. Valth pulled up Dakota's file again, scanning for anything that might explain this disaster. Earth. Former pre-contact civilization. Recently inducted into galactic community. History section made reference to something called persistence hunting, tribal warfare, and what was apparently a sport involving punching each other unconscious for entertainment. Oh no. Candidate Mills, Valth said slowly, your file indicates your species only recently achieved spaceflight capability. That's right, sir. With the new kids. Still figuring out which buttons not to push. And yet you display combat proficiency far exceeding species with millennia of martial tradition. Well, Commander, that's because most species with millennia of martial tradition didn't spend the last few million years trying to kill each other with progressively more creative methods. We got really good at violence. It's kind of our thing. Right up there with cooking shows and arguing about sports. Silence filled the auditorium. Examination complete, Valth announced, his voice somehow steady. Candidate Mills, you pass. Obviously. Dakota grinned and gave him a cheerful salute. Thanks, Commander. So, about my earlier question, next time you run this test, should I aim for alive or We'll discuss parameter adjustments later, candidate. Right? Cool. Hey, any chance you guys have a cafeteria? Fighting holographic monsters really works up an appetite. As Dakota exited her combat sphere and headed toward the facilities area, still chattering about food, Valth looked at the 300 candidate files awaiting final evaluation. Then he looked at the single human file. Then he began drafting his resignation letter, because explaining this to Galactic Command was going to require medications he didn't have and patience he'd never possessed. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a thought crystallized with terrible clarity. Humanity had just joined the galaxy. The galaxy was not prepared.
So what did you think? Did this story surprise you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this sci-fi story, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing science fiction stories every week. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.